Thank you. Sanjay, Parthasarathy. It's my personal learning algorithm for pronunciation of my name. So Index, I was CEO and founder of Index. It was a startup 7 years ago. We started it in India, in Chennai, after I moved there from Microsoft. And I think of what we did as product AI. Let me define what product AI is. Product AI is the gathering, organizing, structuring, and standardizing billions of product records in real time or near real time and continuously. Okay? So we ended up with one of the largest catalogs of products in the world, and we built a platform to do this. We built a platform that would learn how to normalize categories from across 5,000 different sources, that would classify billions of products every day in pretty much real time, that would extract brands, canonical brands, from free text. It would extract attributes from text blobs. It could come in tables, it could come from descriptions, it could come from titles. It would match those 3 billion products every week to see if there was any errors and to learn from it into about 1 billion unique products. It would cluster products so you could use those clusters for recommendations and targeting. So this was a platform we built completely automated with about 35 engineers over a 7-year period. Product information is one of the hardest data sets to wrangle. That's what we learned. Why is it the hardest data set to wrangle? Because it doesn't have a unique identifier. There are 400 million UPCs for products, but there are over 10 billion products in this world. And unlike having social security numbers or emails or latitude, longitude, or EINs and business identifiers, there's really no universal identifier for products. This is a hard problem, and we're at a very, very early stage of this problem. So once we had built this catalog, we actually built a product search engine that was embedded in about 15 million Samsung phones in India, where you could shop by using the camera. Point it at something, it would recognize it, come up with the search results, and you could buy it. Okay, that was one example of an application. We also had a catalog that had standardized key value pairs of attributes for every product. Now, some had about 100 attributes. The highest, I think, was about 92 for a refrigerator, and some had no attributes, right, other than the name and what you could extract from the name. So it was a wide mix of attributes that were available in this product. Why do I say all of this? I say all of this because I want to focus today on where the learnings I have on the opportunity for product AI. The speakers before me gave you learnings about how to organize and plan projects, how to solve certain technology problems. I want to talk to you about the learnings on the opportunity side of product information. We learned that once you have the ability to do product AI, it can be applied in a whole variety of areas. Product search was one. Ad targeting is another. Take the attributes, match it against people's preferences and profiles. It was even used by the largest algorithmic trader in the world, 2 Sigma, to do algorithmic trading using product information as a leading indicator of stock prices. So, applications in areas that we had never considered. It was used by one of the largest ad targeting agencies to extract the brands, extract attributes, and target their ads. Now, as I said, product AI is in its infancy, not only because it's a hard problem, but also because there is so much that is changing in the environment. And I'm going to share with you some of the learnings that I have about what's driving product AI and how you can take advantage of it. Obviously, the area that is most closely connected to products is commerce, right? And one of the most formidable trends in commerce is globalization. Now, we've all heard about globalization for many, many years, 30 years or so, but the globalization that has happened so far has been primarily in the supply chain. What's happening with globalization now is that it's moved over to the demand side. And there's a ton of data and research that bears this out. There's been studies that show that cross-border trade is going to be a very, very large opportunity in the near future. Shopify, in a recent 6-month period, said that 57% of its consumers actually bought something from an international store. Okay? Amazon, for the first time last quarter, said that its marketplace sellers exceeded 50% of its e-commerce revenue. Now, what's really interesting is behind those figures, there's a research company called Marketplace Pulse, which says that about 40% of the sellers in the top 5 Amazon marketplaces in Europe, 40% of those sellers are from China, mainland China or Hong Kong. But 77% of those mainland China and Hong Kong sellers are actually fulfilled by Amazon. So consumers don't actually know they're buying internationally from China and Hong Kong. What does this mean? This means that the quality of product information has to be improved. The opportunity for product information and product AI in marketplaces is going to increase because marketplaces are the most interesting thing that is happening in commerce, and most of those sellers are going to be international. Okay? Consumers are definitely driving the preferences and expectations for commerce, right? And one of the things that they're expecting now is a wide choice. If you want to buy shoes, and I'm a fan of sneakers, the best sneakers are in Japan or in Germany or in Italy, okay? And so those kinds of preferences and buying habits are driving commerce. And Marketplace Pulse, again, says that eBay has about 2 billion product listings worldwide. Amazon has about 3 billion. I estimate there's about 10 billion product listings worldwide. And so what consumers are really experiencing is infinite choice. Infinite choice, and marketplaces are actually stepping up. They're stepping up to deliver that infinite choice, or close to infinite choice. So the expectations that you're dealing with 1 million, 100,000, 10 million products, that goes out the window. You have to build platforms that provide the appearance or the reality of infinite choice. Now, the other thing that they're expecting is instant gratification. Amazon raised the bar on instant gratification by offering, 1-day delivery for Prime, right? And that really raises the bar. Everybody else has got to do it. And I think the next thing you're going to see, tongue in cheek, of course, is that you're going to be able to download and print physical products. Now, that's not as far-fetched as you might imagine, but I think that's really the expectation the consumers have, instant delivery. Now, that has implications on automation, but before I get to that, let's talk about another very important trend in the industry. 10 billion products, product listings. What does that mean? There's a lot of digitization of product information that goes on. And what's missed is, in this day and age, the product information is the product. Product information is the product. Only a fraction of the products are ever seen or touched or experienced by consumers before they buy it. So the most important asset in commerce is product information. Okay, this is a huge learning, and the amount of work and energy that is going to go into making that product information buyable, convertible, all of those things is one of those areas that I think is a huge greenfield opportunity. Now, once you've digitized the product information, You can make it available through an infinite number of channels. You've probably heard the word omni-channel. I'm a believer that omni-channel is limiting how you think about the opportunity. You really have an infinite number of channels, from Google search to social media networks to messaging platforms like WhatsApp and WeChat, to augmented reality. So you really have an opportunity to look at the ability to deliver product information across an infinite number of channels. And what does that open up? It opens up a huge amount of opportunity in being able to attribute your purchases to channels, to track your sales across channels, to have a view of all of your sales across those infinite channels. But it also gives you the ability to target people much more precisely because of where they're seeing your product information. So along with the infinite channels, you also have the opportunity for perfect personalization. How many times have you sat in front of your computer and you've imagined that you want to get a black t-shirt, and Facebook immediately displays an ad for a black t-shirt? Are they spying on you? Probably. But really what's happening is there's an algorithm that is looking at your personal profile and preferences and really matching it up against the attributes of all of those products. And as these systems learn, I think what we're going to see is an opportunity to deliver the perfect product at the perfect place, at the perfect time, at the perfect price. All of this targeting really depends on having a very structured product record. Now, a lot of effort has gone into actually building consumer profiles, right? Click streams and preferences and prior purchases and so on. Very little effort, I would argue, has gone into building these standardized key value pairs on products, and it's essential to do that before you can do perfect personalization. Now, automation is very similar to globalization. A lot of automation has already happened, right? But most of that automation has really focused on standardized back-end processes, workflows that can be easily kind of drawn up and standardized, right? But as we're getting more infinite choice, infinite channels, perfect personalization, instant gratification, the need for automation has gone up a notch. You not only have to deal with scale, which is what back-end processes scale to, but you also have to deal with speed. And let me give you a sense of the kind of orders of magnitude of speed that we're talking about. The two most popular, sale days in the world are Amazon Prime Day and Alibaba Singles Day. Prime Day, 800 orders per second. Singles Day, 7,600 orders per second. There are so many processes in the commerce value chain that are still manual. And I actually work for a company that is trying to automate one of those manual processes. Tax calculation, tax estimation, and tax filing. But that's not the only opportunity. There are tons and tons and tons of processes for logistics, you name it, that have to get real time or near real time. Because this is going to become the norm, because we're only at 12, 13, 14% of all commerce online. Okay? Now, these processes are not just going to have to deal with scale and speed. They're going to have to start getting ahead of the curve. And there's some very interesting things going on, and AI is starting to get into the prediction business. I use this as an example to make my point. In 2013, Amazon filed this patent for anticipatory shopping, right? This is where you ship the stuff before anybody's bought it. And while it's in the system, it's routed to the buyer. Every process that has been automated so far and will be automated will have to use AI to get ahead of the curve, to anticipate, to predict what is going to happen. Every process, because again, when you think of those volumes going through every second, you can't just wait for somebody to act before you do stuff. You have to act before something is bought, right? And hopefully that makes you think. So in commerce, there's so many fundamental secular changes that are happening that makes it really clear to me that working in the product AI space is going to be very fruitful, very demanding, but very fruitful. Okay? And then you add to it what is going on in the economy. And tax is one of those things that is a big driver of the economic condition. Okay? Let me tell you what I mean by that. You know, for years now, there has been a trend to reduce direct taxes, personal income taxes and corporate taxes, right? I mean, this is political, this is policy. It's happened. And what's happened as a result of that is states and local governments and federal governments have a deficit. So they're trying to fill the gap of these budget deficits by levying taxes on goods, indirect taxes. It's only going to increase because they have to make things work, right? So tax is one of those areas which is a huge trend in commerce as well. And it's complicated. It's complicated because it has lots of steps. It's manual because most of these steps are and it's manual because most of these steps haven't been automated. Let me give you a sense of that. It's a multidimensional problem. You could be selling the same laptop in an area, and depending upon which block you're on, the tax could be different. So it isn't about zip codes. It's about geolocation. And remember, there are lots and lots of tax jurisdictions. Sports stadiums can levy their own taxes because they've been funded with public money, right? So jurisdictions can be large, as big as Montana, or parts of Montana, or it could be very tiny because it could be as big as a sports stadium. It is a multidimensional problem. The other thing is there are a lot of taxes. You think about sales tax, there's taxes for batteries, right? And there's tax credits for batteries. And so these taxes have to be computed in pretty much real time or near real time. And I'll tell you why that's important. But there's so many peculiarities. A bagel in New York is not really a bagel for a certain tax rate unless you know that it's been sliced and smeared or it's been sold as is. Completely different tax rates. And these tax policies are actually published in free text all the time by these 12,000 jurisdictions for 3,000 different taxes. And it becomes a problem that is very similar to product information. Changing all the time, very unstructured. The changes are important because if you don't file your taxes and pay the right amount, there are penalties. So this becomes mission critical, right? So this is an example. I've talked a little bit about new tax policies, but there's a couple of very important things going on. One is that governments are going after the sharing economy, Airbnb, Uber, and nobody's really figured out the best way to do that across the entire sharing economy. There's also been laws that have been introduced in 39 states plus Washington, D.C. that require marketplaces and sellers to pay taxes even if they don't have a physical presence in the state. This is another way to fund government. And this is spreading everywhere. France just announced they're going to do this for out-of-state sellers. This is pretty much going to be something that is around the world. And even more interesting, in places like Brazil, for every transaction, you have to register the transaction with the government, you have to say how much tax needs to be paid, and eventually at the transaction, you're going to pay the government taxes, and you're going to keep some of that. So this notion of e-invoicing, real-time tax computation and approval for the government, and split payments is another huge opportunity. It started in Brazil, moving to Europe. It is going to come to the US. Okay? So the notion of everything that you've seen in commerce moving to taxes is real. It's accelerating because there is a need for governments to fund their deficits. So let's put those two things together, taxes and commerce. And This is the area that we're working on now. Take cross-border taxes. Today, when you buy something internationally, somebody somewhere has to figure out what classification of product it is. Once you know the classification of the product, there is a tax code, an HS code, that is assigned to that product. The tax is computed based on that. You fill in the forms for customs clearance, and then it's on its way. Completely manual and completely dependent on the quality of information. So here's an example of how we're using product AI with tax classifications. And we're able to parse the text, extract the attributes. On the right-hand side, you see the attributes. On the left-hand side, you can see the resultant code. In this case, it's a 4-digit code. It's not good enough. So you're going to go look for more information. And if you get a little bit more information, like knitted or the material type, then you can get an 8-digit code. But even that's not good enough because tax codes, HS codes, need to be 10 or 12 digits. 10 or 12 digits in order to compute the right taxes. And so this is an AI machine learning problem because you have to extract the attributes, then you have to map it to tax codes, and as you get more information, you can get the 10 to 12 tax digit tax code, 10 to 12 digit tax codes. So my message to you is product AI is an area that is very early, lots of greenfield spaces because it's a hard problem, because of the secular trends in the market, because there's so much automation that has got to be AI-ified, if you will. So let me stop there. Hope that's a slightly different perspective that you didn't expect. And hopefully that was interesting as well. Thank you. Yeah.
Sanjay, you mentioned that Amazon, for example, has 3 billion listings, eBay has 2 billion product listings, and probably 10 billion out there. With these companies already kind of building their own catalogs and stuff like that, it was hard for me to connect the opportunity in product AI and the fact, unless you're looking at an exit with one go.
So it's not a solved problem, even with, the question is, with Amazon and eBay having platforms that do product information and product AI, where is the opportunity, right? A couple different ways to address that question. It's not a solved problem at eBay and AI, and if you solve a problem that is important to them, yes, there's an acquisition opportunity. But more and more, there are other marketplace platforms. There are platforms in China, in Japan, that Amazon and eBay trail, where I think there is going to be plenty of opportunity in those markets to actually provide a platform. Let's take BigCommerce. Let's take Shopify. Let's take any one of these e-commerce platforms that have hundreds of thousands of sellers, and you're going to get more of those. I think all of those need the platform and don't have the investment and the time that eBay and Amazon have. And remember, it's not just Amazon and eBay that count. I mean, Netflix is going to start selling products. Facebook is starting to sell products. Instagram is starting to sell products. So commerce isn't just limited to the biggies as we know it today. Yes?
So on a small scale, Stitch Fix does something similar to this. When new products come in, they have a sort of manual process for integrating, and then the products are delivered via essentially an AI system, which is kind of a small scale Amazon. The problem you have at Amazon is you search one thing and it'll show you 17 different versions of the same product because it isn't unified, right?
Yeah.
17 different black hats from the same manufacturer with a different price frequently, for even though it's the exact same hat. How do you then, what do you think is going to be the big innovation that will make this easy? Because I know Stitch Fix has somebody pick up a shirt, feel it, stretch it. Does it look good on a tall person? How does it work to get the right attributes and to build that out? What's the next step that's going to enable that to happen at scale? Because you can't have a person constantly judging those products?
You've actually identified many problems in your comment or question, right? And I'm not. Let me try to address a few of those. You are right. Amazon. When you search for something, you'll get more than one instance of that particular product, even though they're identical, because sellers game the whole process. They will change the title a little bit. They will add a few more attributes, or they will add a SKU number that is slightly different, and so on. The advantage of having a database that's seen close to every product in the world and being able to get to the attributes helps you match products at a much deeper level. Most matching algorithms today just stick with the title, right? Unless you have a small number of products, you just stick with the title and you try to match the title. So the answer there is to go as deep as possible, to get as many attributes as possible, to understand all the different ways people try to trick and game the system. This is where the learning comes in, right? That is an example. I think the whole area of attribute extraction, structuring unstructured text in product information is probably the most productive, most useful thing, most useful application of AI and ML that I can think of these days. But I think I answered only one part of your question, though.
That's okay.